Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of the dceu Daily. Justice League, the strangest situation in movie history. They put out this film. Right, so Zack Snyder finishes filming this movie, right? Let me put this down so I can talk properly, so I can speak candidly. Zack Snyder finishes this movie. He's editing it. The music's going to be done. I don't know if the music ever was done by Junkie XL. All of a sudden, we get this big announcement. We all knew that Zack's daughter had committed suicide. You know, how does a parent live with that? How does a parent go on? Who knows? You know, it's a devastating thing for Zack and Deb to go through. So the announcement is made that Zack has decided he cannot carry on. He can't complete the movie. So Warner Brothers make the decision to bring in Joss Whedon. But Joss Whedon comes in to do reshoots. Joss Whedon comes in to make some changes. Now, this situation was sold as one friend asking another friend to finish his movie off. But the reality was very different. First of all, we do not know the truth. If Zack actually couldn't go on doing this movie, or if Warner Brothers said, you know what, we're not happy with what you're doing and we're going to bring in Joss Whedon to finish this movie off. We don't know. We just don't know what the truth is. We can allege things, we can assume things, but we just don't know. So Joss Whedon comes in, does reshoots, has to bring back Henry Cavill, who's in the middle of doing his Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible Fallout. You know, that studio will not allow him to shave off his facial hair. We already have a massive problem that actually Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers were very honest about. A lot of jokes were made about it, even before we saw the finished product. So they go back, do their reshoots, we see the film, and we see that this film is rushed, it's uneven, we can tell that Henry's upper lip CGI is terrible. This isn't really the film Zack Snyder envisioned. We know that because he's pretty much said so via Vero. He hasn't said it blatantly, but we know this is not the movie that Zack Snyder wanted to give us. So what could have been done better? There's two things that could have been done here. First of all, the problem is in the previous movie to this arc, they killed off Superman. So there's a situation where you need to bring Superman back for this universe to continue. So there's two things there's more than two things that could have happened here. Either Warner Brothers could have said, you know what, Zack, we're going to postpone this movie, we're going to postpone the release, we're going to pay the fines to all the theatrical houses, all the movie houses. We're going to say, sorry, this film will not come out when we said it is. We're going to postpone this movie. When you're ready to come back to finish this film, that's fine. You've gone through a terrible ordeal, if that's the case. Or they could have said, you know what, Zack, it's been great. We're not happy with your finished product. Nice doing business with you. We're going to bring in Joss Whedon to film, to start from scratch and make his own Justice League movie and do it the way we want it done. Or they could have made got Joss Whedon just to write and direct his own version of Superman, a Superman rebirth story within a Superman movie, right? So I'm quite confident that Joss Whedon wouldn't have done the kind of rebirth story that Chris Terrio, David S. Goyer and Zack Snyder wanted to do. I believe that Joss Whedon is immersed in comics and understands comics and would have done a really awesome rebirth story. So these are the things that shouldn't happen. What you don't do is say, oh, we've got to get this movie out. We spent so much money. Justice League, first of all, should have been postponed. Whether it was a Warner Brothers decision to let Zack Snyder go because they didn't like what he was doing. You know, these are decisions that should have been made before they greenlit Justice League. They saw Man of Steel. They saw Batman v Superman. They already saw Zack Snyder's vision. You can't make Zack Snyder into Kevin Feige. You can't turn Zack Snyder into Joss Whedon. It's just not possible. You knew what he was going to put out. You knew his vision. You make a decision before you greenlight Justice League. But even if you've allowed Justice League to happen, you definitely postpone Justice League if you're not happy. Or if you want to give Zack Snyder the time to get over the death of his daughter. That's right and proper. Then Zack Snyder comes back, finishes the editing, the post-production, the music goes on from Junkie, and we all get the film we're fighting to see now, which is the Snyder Cut. But if you're not happy with Zack Snyder, you bring in Joss Whedon and you say, right, you give us your ultimate Justice League vision. Give us the film you want to make. Start from scratch. Or forget Justice League. We've decided actually now it's too soon for a Justice League movie. We need Superman back. We need you to do the ultimate rebirth story, which of course would have been awesome. But as I've already said, what you don't do is say, oh, right, well, there's this cut of Zack Snyder's. We're not happy with it. So what we want you to do is go back, put some smiles in, bring back Henry. He can't shave off the facial hair, but you can deal with it, Joss. So what I'm trying to say to you is the Justice League cut, the theatrical cut of Justice League, is actually not Joss Whedon's fault. It is the studio's fault because they wanted to put a product out there by November the 18th. That shouldn't be the case. That should be, do you know what? We want to put out the best movie possible, right? And with this situation we've got here, we can't do that. So we postpone Justice League or we cancel Justice League. It's a bit like what Kevin Feige and the MCU have done with Guardians of the Galaxy 3. After they fired James Gunn, they could have just brought someone in, kind of a Joss Whedon, rushed it out, right, this is it. But they were obviously, I'll talk about that in my MCU Daily. I don't want to go into that here. But the point is, Justice League without Zack Snyder shouldn't have gone forward. Either you wait for him to come back or you let Joss Whedon do his thing, project his vision into this franchise. They had a decision to make, and ultimately they had the wrong decision to make. But it was blatantly obvious that Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League had already been completed. So whatever happened, we would have been fighting for that cut to happen because we knew it was out there, even though we were told there was no Snyder Cut. There is a Snyder Cut out there. There's definitely a Snyder Cut out there. Zack's pretty much hinted to it. There's so many people who have worked on that project who have admitted this. So there's no going back from that. I don't know if we'll get a Snyder Cut. I don't know if that's what Zack's son was hinting to the fan the other day in the Twitter exchange. I don't know. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. But the point is, we would have fought for that, whatever happened, even if we got the ultimate vision of Joss Whedon from his own Justice League or through his own Superman rebirth story. My personal preference would have been, once Zack Snyder walked away for whatever reason, whatever the truth is, that maybe the better move here was to make another Superman film, do an ultimate rebirth story, do the reign of the Superman, like the animated story, give us something special, and we would have been in a better position, rather than pushing out this Justice League film, taking somebody else's vision, cutting it to pieces, reshooting certain elements of it, putting smiles here and there because you want to turn it into the MCU. That was totally wrong, and that should not have happened. There was an opportunity to do the right thing, and Warner Brothers didn't make the right decision, and they ended up in a mess, which led to this situation now, where they're kind of rebranding the DCEU, and they brought in Walter Hamada, and now they're making the right decisions. But we still have this elephant in the room of this Snyder Cut that we all want to see. So what's the best thing going forward now is just to release the thing so we can all move bloody on. Otherwise, we never will. Mistakes have been made. We can't go back in time. We can't make the decisions, I believe, which was to just cancel Justice League and let Joss Whedon do the movie he wanted to make. And Joss Whedon would have made a great movie, but you can't blame Joss Whedon for that. Maybe he shouldn't have accepted it, but maybe it was too good of an opportunity for him to miss. But in the end, it hurt him. He was going to do Batgirl. He was moved on from Batgirl because everyone blamed Joss Whedon for what happened with Justice League. But can you really blame Joss Whedon? Can you, in all decency, in all moral virtue, can you blame Joss Whedon for the version of Justice League we got? He was brought in to do a very difficult gig, an impossible gig, a gig that just couldn't happen. And at the end of the day, actually, as underwhelmed as I was with Justice League, I think he did the best that he could. You know, a very tight schedule. Nobody was happy. The cast and crew weren't happy that Zack had left. You know, they didn't want to work with Joss, not because of Joss, but because of Zack Snyder, because everybody loved his vision and wanted to see it released in the cinema. So very difficult. You know, it's like Richard Lester when he took over Superman 2 from Richard Donner. Nobody hated Richard Lester, nobody, but everybody loved Dick Donner and wanted to see his ultimate vision of Superman 2. So it's like Warner Brothers were repeating their mistakes with a DC movie. So the genuine thing to do now, the decent thing to do now, Warner Brothers, is please release the Snyder Cut.